Episode 308. Don't you want to go? Jake was shocked. He was completely caught off guard by Lila. For a moment, he had fallen on the carpet. His hands were pressed and it hurt a little, but it was even more repulsive that Lila was clinging to his body, her thin layer of nightgown against his skin. Then she took his face with both hands and was about to kiss him. He felt nausea and pulled up hard. At the same time, he twisted his body and kicked her away. His body soon turned to the other side. Lila fell to the floor and smiled charmingly, letting her robe stay open. Crossing her two long white legs, she looked charming and seductive. Why? Why are you still pretending? With no sex for so many years, don't you want to get laid? If it was Serena, he certainly wanted to. But facing Lila, Jake got up from the carpet and leaned against the sofa, ignoring her. This was a suite. The living room and bedroom were separated. The luxurious and beautiful interior showed the unique style of the owner. Lila took 2 wine glasses and walked toward him. She blew softly on his face and said, "Drink this and I will take you to see her. How about that?" Jake fixed his eyes on her with suspicion. "Don't believe me?" Lila reached out behind him. Jake's face was dark and full of warnings. "Fuck off!" Lila didn't listen and said indifferently, "I am helping you to loosen the rope." "Fuck? I'll fuck you any moment. Do you want to try?" She then reached out to his back. With a strong pull, the rope was immediately loosened a little. Jake felt a little weird. This Lila? What did she want to do that day? Lila leaned over and whispered, "In the past few years, you've already collected a lot of criminal evidence of the Whites Company, right?" Jake was startled by her sudden words and his heart thumped. His dark and deep pupils suddenly shrank, and Jake glanced at her, pretending to be calm, squinted, and asked slowly, "What? In the past few years, you don't think I know?" Lila held the glass and smiled softly. She was sitting across from Jake and looked at him. "You are the undercover of the police, right? In the past few years, the financial information of the Whites Company has been leaking. The police have already obtained a lot of evidence. You just kept all that from me." "What do you mean?" "Sneaking in the Whites Company through Cox Enterprise, collecting the transaction records and bills of them, and then secretly transmitting them to the police. But I can't figure out how you did it. You've been locked up for so long, disabled for more than a year, and have been taking drugs since 2 years ago. How did you do this?" Lila put the glass in front of him and chuckled. "I didn't understand it before. Now I figured it out. You have accomplices, right?" Jake looked at her coldly with a blank face. "Who is this accomplice?" Lila asked softly. Jake's eyes contained irony. "Why must it be me?" "Except you. No one has the motivation or the brain." Lila smiled and gently shook the red liquid inside the glass. "Although I hate you, I have once loved you, Jake. I know you too well. You are really good. But if you don't have accomplices, you can't do it. If you talk to me about your accomplices, I will let you go home. How about that?" Jake finally untied the remaining rope, looked at his wrist with red marks, and stretched. Lila looked at his comfortable look, took a sip of red wine, and smiled. He saw a red lip print on the red wine glass. Lila's reaction was much lighter than he had imagined. "You're not afraid I'll run now?" "You can't run," Lila calmly said. "There are so many people outside. Unless you have the ability to jump out of the window, you can't escape." Then she glanced at him and chuckled. "But if you want to go down, I can take you down easily. That is, as long as you tell me about your accomplices. Or you can choose to have sex with me once, and I will also let you go. 4 years, you can finally go back. Don't you want to?" "Want to sleep with me so much?" With half a smile in his eyes, Jake looked down at her with a disdainful coldness. "Of course," Lila chuckled. "I even dream of it." "Unfortunately, I feel nothing for you." Very direct, the sentence was a great insult to any woman. in particular to a beauty like Lila, whom everyone would want to seduce. The smile on Lila's disappeared, and then she sneered. "If you can't do it, just say that. Were you injured there when you took the beating 4 years ago?" Jake ignored her and looked at the surroundings in the suite. The decoration was very beautiful, while the style like a hotel. However, Lila had lived here for a while, so it looked a bit like home. Seeing that he didn't talk, Lila gritted her teeth and said, "There is another way. Have you forgotten?" "Want me to give my accomplices up?" "So you're admitting that you have accomplices?" He listened to the question and asked, "Have I ever denied it?" Lila smiled a little, stood up, and handed the red wine to him. "Have some wine." He took it over and gently shook it in his hand. "I advise you to do the smart thing. The management of the Whites Company is already mad. They originally wanted to kill you directly. I asked them not to. If it wasn't me, when you were on the road today, you would have been killed already." Lila looked at him with her big eyes. The smile on her stiff face was very ugly. Jake did not speak, looking at the big vents in front of him. His eyes were very deep. "You don't believe me?" Lila raised an eyebrow. "Do you really want to try to be killed?" "I do believe you." Jake's eyes fell on her. "But why are you so reluctant to let me die? Do you still like me?" "Why didn't I find you humorous before?" Lila leaned toward him carefully. Jake did not refuse and let her approach him. Lila was slightly surprised, but quickly leaned closer and gently put a hand on his shoulder. Jake looked down at her and smiled. Lila felt that something was blooming in her heart. He actually smiled at her. Lila was slightly lost, but then quickly responded, "No!" She wanted to retreat, but it was too late. Jake's strike was so fast, landing on her neck. Lila was hit without warning. Feeling numb all over, she blacked out and lost her consciousness.